Okay. All right, so thank you everybody for being here. It's great to see everybody's faces. I just want to give a little guidelines, I guess. I'm going to mute everybody except for our speakers. We have Estelle now who's going to be joining us, which is great. But I'm going to mute everybody just so we don't have any background noise. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box. I will put a chat in it, so it'll give you guys a notification. And if you click on that, you can put in some questions, and depending on how long we run, and if we have time, we'll get to some questions, but we're going to try and cover as much as we can in just sort of an interview style format between the four of us. So with that, I am going to mute everybody except our speakers, and we can get started. I wonder how to check this. That's the chief. Gotta find everybody. Find the right Merritt. Oops, there you go. Are you there you go. Now you're unmuted. And then I lost Estelle. There she is. Okay. All right. So we have our three speakers. Thank you all. Merritt, we'll start with you if that's okay. You get the short end of the stick.
All right. No, I'm glad that we have a chance to be on. I've missed the Monday meetings with the chamber, and I think it's a great opportunity if people do have questions to be able to answer them today. So thank you for setting this up.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I miss everybody too. I didn't think I would miss the Monday meetings so much, but I really do. Okay, so the first question is, what's new? Just kidding. So obviously the shelter in place has impacted city services. Can you tell us a little bit about how that, what changes have been made as far as council meetings or the city hall and our parks and rec, and maybe some city projects that have been put on hold because of it?
Sure, I can give you a brief rundown. If anybody has questions, they can ask more. So I think one of the biggest changes is that City Hall is closed. And so we are making appointments to keep planning and building going, building inspections, meetings regarding planning. Those can be done, and we're continuing those on an appointment basis so people can still call with questions, have phone meetings, or if they need to set up an in-person meeting, they can do that with planning and building. For utility billing, we're accepting payments by mail over our website and also through the Dropbox. So utility billing is going ahead. One of the things we've done, and we did before the state came down with some guidance on that, is we aren't shutting anybody off for non-payment of utility bills. We recognize the hardships, and we're willing to work out payment plans in the future. So with regard to utility billing, some limitations on how they're being paid, and then we're doing a moratorium on any kind of shutoffs. But the City Hall building itself is closed, and that's going to be until further notice. And we have direction from the public health officer with the county and the state, and we have new guidance where we can feel like we can reopen safely. Our parks are open with a lot of limitations. The people still are allowed and encouraged to get out and get exercise, and some of the best places to do that are at our city parks with social distancing guidelines being followed. So our parks are open, and we do have park staff cleaning the bathrooms and the other facilities that are necessary for that. But you will notice the playgrounds, basketball hoops, things like that are closed where you can't achieve the social distancing. A lot of the services we provide, water and sewer, those have to go on. So many of our city employees are still working. We have our water and sewer crews. They're of course working. We are still running the senior bus. We've done some adaptations with our senior bus service where we've actually had our bus drivers do some pickup and drop off for some of our senior clients who don't want to go out and do that themselves. So, for now we're in a holding pattern. There's the police counter is not open, but maybe I'll let Chief Downey speak to some of the the limitations with services and how we're adapting within the police department.
Great. I noticed by the question it was saying what's new, so I can probably elaborate on some new issues too. Yeah, number one, obviously our counter's closed. We are preparing for the eventual opening. I put some plexiglass up at the front counter, so there's more protection for the people inside. We do have the new masking order that's coming down that I think we'll probably talk about later in this meeting. So here at the office, everyone is healthy, which is a good thing. We've had no one go out with any illnesses. One of the issues that I identified a few weeks ago is the fact that we are in a very small building and we're on top of each other. You've probably seen all the activity down at the old EPT building. We are transitioning our patrol operations, CSOs, detectives to that location so that we can separate more and take away any kind of possibility of infection of some kind. The idea is, obviously, the city is finalizing the purchase of that building. We are working with the city manager and the city to see if we can refurbish that in a timely manner to get all of the police services down there. It will be a big boom for the police department, and it'll be a plus for the city, because I think it's going to be a savings in the long run for the city to move operations there in the existing building without having to add on to it right now. It's a plan that could work for the next 5 to 10 years, but after that, with the growth of the city, it's going to have to be expanded upon. But right now, I think we can make that work. Other than that, everyone's working hard. We have a lot of positive attitudes down here. Everyone is doing their job, and I'm pretty proud of how things are going. So that's an update for me at this point.
And what about personal protective equipment for the officers? Is that coming? Is that in the works?
Well,
what's happening?
Well, actually, we're very good in that regard. We've been getting a lot of masks through OES and gloves, that type of thing. We have a lot of PPE. The other thing that's been coming in quite steadily are the hand sanitizers from all different kinds of outlets. The distillery, Still up in Eureka. My niece is one of the owners there, and she provided us with all kinds of hand sanitizing stuff. So we're doing pretty well there. We could probably use some more, especially with the way things are going, but we're doing pretty well with that.
Yeah, and Renee, just one thing I wanted to add. We did order some masks. We're really happy to be able to get those from Left and Stitches, one of our local businesses, and we also had a donation of the hand sanitizer from the Humboldt Distillery. So pretty cool to have some of our local businesses providing some of those essential protective items for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's great. So speaking of face masks, as we know, that's starting tomorrow or midnight, technically 12:01. Just generally speaking, what does that mean for residents and businesses at this point?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question. Like I say, I just got off a law enforcement call with all law enforcement executives in the county. As you stated, there'll be a masking order going into place. This is to match up with the guidelines that are coming down from the governor. We're trying to get all the things, all the items taken care of that the governor has dictated to us so that we can start opening up businesses. And one of them is this mask issue. There's been a lot of conflicting information, I think, out there as to how this is going to go and the enforcement. The basic thing is we're looking for compliance. You will not see Fortuna police officers citing people or arresting them for not wearing masks. They will be advised that they're supposed to be wearing masks. Anyone that is obviously in defiance, in a sense, that repeat offenders, those that are going out of their way to make themselves visible in defiance of this thing, and that could change. But at this point, we're not looking to arrest anybody, to cite anybody, just we're looking for compliance. Some of the issues, and so basically it's going to be up to the store owners as well. There may be store owners that say that it's going to be on them to also enforce it if that's what they choose to do. Office buildings. I've talked to people in the banking industry, and even here in our office, we've had personnel working together for the last 3 or 4 weeks without masks. And I'm not going to, order my people to necessarily wear a mask in the office. We've already been exposed to each other for a month and a half. But what we will do is anyone who's in direct contact with the public, we will ask them to mask up. And I think that's the spirit of the whole thing. One of the current concerns that I would have is that I'm afraid, I shouldn't say the word afraid, I'm concerned that we could have more incidences of conflict out in the public if someone takes offense to someone else not wearing a mask. And we've already had those types of incidences happen. So we have to be careful and cognizant of that. So something that is a health and safety order now could turn into a criminal or a penal code issue tomorrow, because someone takes offense, they get into an argument, they get into a fight. So we're being very careful with that, because I after talking to some of the local business owners that I've talked to in the last few days, there's a lot of people that their patients are wearing thin, and they are, I think a lot of people are kind of scratching their head at this new masking order. So we'll work through that. We're going to work with the public on that. You have the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And I've always tried to operate as much as I can in the spirit of the law, and that's what we're going to do at this point.
And how does that also with the compliance issues? Have you had any issues with businesses not complying with the current shelter in place, not the face masks, but with the state order and the county's order?
Pretty much we've had pretty general compliance. There have been a few incidences where that has not been the case, that we've advised people this is what the order states, you need to comply with that. I think we're seeing some of that loosen up, and I think that as time goes by, especially sometime around the 1st of May, you're going to see that loosen up even more. People are ready to get back to work. People are ready to be productive again, and that's what we're hoping for.
Right. Okay, good.
Hi, Renee.
Yes. Hi, Estelle.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in here a little bit. So, the mask order is going to be required as of 1 minute past midnight. And I think people, generally speaking, may not have a real understanding of the role of the mask. And it's not so much to protect you from somebody infecting you, it's to protect you from infecting somebody else. So their question, is that really going to protect me? Yes, it is. If everybody's wearing them, it'll be as if everybody was staying at home. Except now we can go outside and do, reopen the economy, get involved, and have somewhat the equivalent of the stay in place. So I think that it's a real opportunity to be educational, to be firm, to let people know, look, yes, we hear you. We want the economy to start reopening as quickly as possible. We want people to be able to run their businesses. This is what you've got to do to let us do that. Because otherwise, unfortunately, and that is part of the planning, and Mike knows it, there'll have to be a pushback. And we don't want to be put back in our houses after we've been let out, basically. So I think tonight's meeting with the health officer and with Sheriff Hansel will be very informative for people. I hope people watch it. You'll get a good idea of their constraints. First of all, we're constrained, as Michael said, by the governor. Basically, it's the governor's call what he allows. Now he's been talking about the rollout in terms of allowing elective surgeries now in medical establishments, but he hasn't talked about any further businesses becoming or opening up to non-essential. However, I can tell you that we are contemplating that in Humboldt County and looking at what ones would make the more sense. And so as far as the mask requirements, it's not as if you're out there and you can social distance, you're going for a walk along the river, you don't need to be wearing a mask. But if you're going to be meeting up with a bunch of people, yes, you are. If you're going into a business, yes, you are. And businesses, one of the other things that we're looking at on the county level is to have this sign that you could put on the business that says that you are following the guidance, such as requiring masks, requiring that people keep the 6-foot distance. And a lot of people are making that work. I mean, I've seen it in the stores where they mark where you can stand and you know what 6 feet looks like. So it's I think for all of us community leaders, modeling good behavior is the best way to be strong and firm. I know people can say, oh, I don't need to wear a mask, this is ridiculous, this is a plot, this is a political, but at the same time you'll notice that all of the work that's being done by the scientists is discovering other ways that this virus is really severe. I mean, it's even turning out now that it may not all be having to do with airway. It may be blood clotting and those kind of things. So it's a very serious virus, and we don't have any controls. I will say the governor has really stepped up with regard to testing, and that's the other thing. We're going to have a lot more testing. And then the other protocol is to learn how we can isolate people should they, you know, as we open it up, should things spread, how people can be isolated. And so it's like with that, and I want to say first, I am really impressed with how Humboldt County has responded to the call to stay at home, even though it was a huge ask of everybody. We all love to gather and work with each other. I think it's been incredibly successful. So I don't want to throw that success away by acting foolish. And so, you know, I'm not going to be out there. I think that Mike and the Sheriff's Department as well are going to be taking an educational approach, you know, and hopefully very soon we're going to be able to open up some more businesses, what people have been asking more for. And I think that the level of cooperation, not under pressure, hopefully. We're doing it because we all believe that we want to protect each other. That's what's going to get us through. I'm sorry to take up so much time, but I've been living and breathing this stuff. and we're really going through a very significant transition right about now. Right about now, where we're starting to just open it up a little bit. This is where we need to be very careful so we don't get ourselves in trouble. And I'm very excited about the fact that, you know, we are going to begin to open up some of the county services as well. So I'll leave it at that unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah, no, thank you, Estelle. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think tonight's meeting, I mean, a lot of, you know, Merritt and I talked before, a lot of what we're, you know, talking about today is sort of fluid. So, you know, everything may change depending on what comes out of the governor's office, and then, you know, obviously affects what comes out of the county. I did read that Stanislaus County's mayors got together and wrote a letter to the governor, basically requesting that some of their restrictions be lifted because they've had such a low incident rate, and that they feel that they're prepared for, you know, an increase in testing and a surge if it would happen. Is that something that the county supervisors or the county is looking at possibly doing for us, or are we kind of in a wait and see right now?
I think you're right. We're all waiting to see what the discussion is tonight, because it's going to bounce off of what the governor is doing. There's a lot of cooperation happening across the board. Everybody knows that that the rural areas are less impacted, but there's also a real concern that if we lift too much, we will be impacted. And so they're already preparing for that. That's already mapped out. And as Mike said, the PPEs are all over the place, which is great. I think we're also going to have a board meeting next Tuesday, and we're going to have a presentation again, both from the health officer and the sheriff and economic development. I think that's one of the key areas. I was at the EOC the other day, and we were talking about different kinds of emergencies, you know, earthquakes, floods, whatever. And there's always disaster recovery. For this particular case, disaster recovery is economic recovery. And so the fact that businesses are working with the EOC and telling what their problems are is really key. Getting those figures, the number of people who are out of work, the revenue that's been lost, that's all key. So Scott Adair will be at the meeting on Tuesday, and we can discuss those kind of things. I do think you'll find that, you know, behind all of this strict adherence to the guidance, there's a real desire at the Board of Supervisors to move us forward. So let me put it that way. And I want to say again a huge thank you to you guys and to everybody for how everybody's pitched in. It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. Merritt, I'm going to pivot back to you. Do you have any initial assessments on the economic impact to the city's budget or businesses generally, without, you know, getting into, you know, specific companies?
Yeah, you know, three big parts of our budget are, you know, from larger to smaller: sales tax, TOT, property tax, and we're expecting sales tax to drop by, you know, I think about 160 to 200,000, and TOT tax to drop by as much as 200,000 in the coming fiscal year. And you know, I don't know about property tax yet, so it is going to be a big hit to the city, and we're anticipating at least $500,000 to our general fund, which is our most restricted part of our budget. So that's about, right now our general fund budget's a little over 5 million, so that's about 10%. So it's a pretty big deal. I think one of the good things is that Fortuna does have reserves above and beyond kind of what the city's reserve policy calls for. So some of the other things that are happening statewide, like the deferral of some of the sales tax, the city, so not only are we going to see a drop, but then we're going to see the sales tax that is paid being delayed. So it's a really critical time for cities to consider their reserves and how they can stay solvent in this time. But right now, with the expected, again, deferrals, the drop in the next year budget, we're having to adjust our budgets accordingly, and then we have to plan for that delay and the sales tax that we're going to see. So I think what's unknown is how long this recovery is actually going to take. Are we going to see things back bounce pretty quickly? The predictions right now are for more of a slow and gradual rebound. So, you know, we're not supposed to be back up to the sales tax levels of, you know, prior to this disaster for 4 years or so. So, you know, I think what we need to do is just be very conservative with our budgets right now. And I think we'll know more in 6 months as we see how the economy starts to respond. And once we start getting some normal cash flow from sales tax and TOT tax back in, if that happens. Again, we don't know exactly how the response is going to be. We don't know how the traveling public, and if they're going to be coming to Humboldt County in the numbers they were in the past. So there's a lot of pieces that come into play, and certainly, you know, 10% of our general funds a pretty big impact to our budget.
So Merritt, I want to pivot off that a little bit. I'm sure you're aware of the city's efforts that are under 500,000 to make sure that there is money coming from the CARES Act. And at this point, the model is that it's going to actually come through the state. And I know that the California State Association of Counties is really working on that too, and lobbying to make sure that cities under 500,000 get their share of the federal reimbursement for these kind of hits. So if there's anything else you need on that, I'm sure you guys are already involved in it. But
the league, so what's happening is cities over 500,000 can get the money from the CARES Act directly, and the state takes the rest of it. But there's no mandate that the state moves that down to the cities and the counties with populations under 500,000. So I think it's important from a political perspective that we let the state government know that we really need to see those funds come in, because that drop in revenue, again, is not something that's reimbursable with any of the federal legislation that's come out right now. Loss of revenue is not something. Only direct costs for responding to the emergency are what we will expect to see back from the emergency funding that's been allocated. And just doing a back of the envelope calculation, if you take, I think it's 15.2 billion, I think the state's supposed to get, and if you divide it by the population, it was kind of strange. Just under 500,000 would be the number I came up with Fortuna if the state moved everything through based on population. So, I doubt that's going to happen. We won't get it 100% per capita. The state also has expenses, but that anything that could offset the reduction to our general fund revenues is going to be really important to the city moving forward.
Yep. Yep.
Well, speaking of revenue, I know you guys worked on a emergency business resiliency loan. Do you want to talk about that program a little bit?
Yeah, again, I just mentioned a minute ago that sales tax is the number one revenue generator for the city. So all of the business owners, all of the chamber members who are, have businesses that are producing sales tax, we get reports at the city and we look at every business and we know exactly how much money comes from all of those businesses, and it's critically important. So right now we have businesses that are closed, they have no money coming in, they have fixed costs. And so the effort really was, and then the CARES program, the CARES Act, including the Paycheck Protection, I forgot what the acronym for the other one.
Yeah, the EIDL.
Yeah, the EIDL.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody heard that the PPP program ran out of money. So what we had some business loan funds from past grant and other economic development projects, proceeds that had come in that have relatively few strings attached. And so what we did is we're partnering with Redwood Region Economic Development Commission. And I've been working very closely with FBID. Diana really has a finger on the pulse. So we developed an emergency business resiliency emergency loan program using some of the city's business loan funds to give grants up to $25,000 to businesses kind of as a stopgap to help cover these payments, hopefully until things can get back open, or if they can get grants through the PPP or the EIDL program. So again, if a business does want to apply, we have the information on our website. And so for a $25,000 loan right now, we're able to get some matching funds from REDEC, Headwaters, Humboldt Area Foundation. So on a $25,000 loan right now, the city is paying $8,000 and the business would be getting a loan for $25,000. So, for business, and there's no payments due on those for 6 months. The interest rate is 2.5% because with REDEC, who's doing our servicing of those loans, they have a policy that's the minimum, but no payments for 6 months. So our hope is this could be some good bridge financing. And we do have a number of businesses that have already stepped up. We expect to have 3 or 4 loan applications approved this week, and I hope around 5 done a week. But I think this is one of those instances where we can take advantage of some of those funds that we have sitting there. And if we see businesses that are needing that in Fortuna, then we have some more money that we could put towards that as well. So let's keep our businesses alive and healthy during this downturn, and that's part of what the city can do to help with that.
So Renee, I'd also like to jump in on that. I have a big question for you guys. The phase in of the quote unquote non-essential businesses is really going to be, it's not just going to happen like that. There's certain businesses that will be, make more sense. So do you guys have any thoughts on what should be first non-essential businesses to be activated? Any thoughts on that at all?
No. Diana, do you want to unmute?
We could think about it and just let me know. I know you wanted every one of them, but I'm just.
I will not be creating the list of what businesses can and cannot be open.
And I think it's partly a question of which ones can be opened safely. We have bigger
That's
retail
question.
stores, for example, Tractor Supply, and you see up to 50 people going in there, and there's other businesses, even though they sell different things, that could operate much in the same way. So I think if you look at all our businesses and say, okay, which ones aren't open that could operate in a safe manner, rather than which ones are most important, which ones can open in a safe manner, and then which ones are needed. At some point people are going to have to get haircuts and their dogs bathed, but
yeah, we've heard that one for sure.
Yeah. So I think which ones can open safely, and let's think about it from a safety first standpoint, and then if there's dire need, how can we adjust those businesses that that people are really missing those services so they can operate safely.
Dog grooming's okay now. Did you hear that?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the safe versus unsafe manner is probably a better benchmark.
Okay, great.
Because like
You
Merritt
guys have
pointed out,
ideas.
yeah, you can be like a smaller shop, Humboldt Corner, not considered essential, but they have the capacity and the space to have people come in and be social distance. So, why wouldn't they be considered? So, versus a Tractor Supply. So yeah, I think I like the safe versus unsafe format if you want to shoot that up the flagpole. Merritt, you had put out, I don't remember, part of your emergency declaration that you were closing all city properties through April 17th, which includes the Monday Club and the River Lodge. Has that been switched? Are you changing the language and to say until rescinded? I'm assuming the Monday Club and the River Lodge and the Fireman's Pavilion at Roner Park, all those are still closed?
Well, at this point, until the public health officer at the county or the state changes the rules for gatherings, we really can't do a whole lot there. We can't allow for gatherings when the state's saying or the county health officer has directed that don't happen. So, what we're going to do is continue to comply with the directives coming from the county and the state. And we absolutely want to open those as soon as possible. And what I'm concerned about is some of our bigger city events that the city of Fortuna is known for, the rodeo, the 3rd of July festival, Auto Expo. Those events take a lot of planning in advance. They bring a lot of people to the city. Right now, we don't have any certainty that we'll be able to hold those type of events that really make the city is what it is. And so I think that's really going to be a big question moving forward. Are we, those other bigger events? At some point, we'll be able to open our facilities. But again, I don't have a timeline for that. I'm more curious what's going to happen to our bigger signature events within the city.
And so I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier. If we can model that we accept that there are certain things we're going to have to do to modify our behavior, and if we can do it without the whole big pushback, I think we can move more smoothly towards what you'd like to see. I really think that.
Right. Well, I sit on, as well as Mike Johnson and Marilyn Strell, who's on the call here too. We're part of the Auto Expo committee, and we just had a meeting this week about it. And how can we change it up if need be, if we can't have the dance at the River Lodge, if we can't have the barbecue at the park, and how do we change those things? And so it's a big concern. And as far as Auto Expo goes, they're waiting until the end of May probably to make a decision based on where we're at and what comes down from the governor and then down through the county. So yeah, but it's a big concern. I mean, if we have hops in August as well, and that's a huge event in the parks. Yep. Or in Roner Park. So yeah. Pivoting towards recovery, has the city thought about how that's going to look? What resources are going to be available? I mean, again, it's all fluid. We don't know what's going to happen as far as whether gatherings are going to be allowed or not. Creating non-event events, virtual scavenger hunts. I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering what the city's plans are, if any, for economic development or revitalizing the economy. Not to put you on the spot, sorry.
I think we're going to be as supportive as we can for things opening back up, provided that we can implement measures that are safe, allow them to be safe, and then comply with the state and other county directives. I mean, we want to see things open back up. I mean, our desire would be to see everything open back up, but not until we can do so in a safe manner. So to the extent businesses, special events, other activities, can and want to move forward, we're going to be supportive of that and really help to kind of, I think the area the city can help. We don't put on a lot of the events, although we may host them in some of our buildings or facilities, but we can try to help interpret the regulations and try to help our businesses and special event teams understand, what they can do to be in compliance. And so whatever we can do to help push that forward in those regards, we will. But again, a lot of the activity is driven, by entities outside the city, and we're more of kind of a support and a partner on a lot of those things.
So this question is either for Merritt or Estelle. Recently, Governor Newsom announced an agreement with Motel 6 to start housing some of the homeless populations. Those that have tested positive and need treatment need to be isolated. Is there anything that's happening on a county level with our local hotels to secure housing to help our homeless population if they become infected and need to be quarantined?
Well, I can tell you with certainty that there is. I don't know the details of if there are any in Fortuna, but I know that we have in Eureka, we have in Garberville, and what they've done is that people who are, they started off with the vulnerable, the ones that might be susceptible, and also people who had either tested positive or were exposed to somebody who's tested positive. And they house those for like 14 days and then kind of cycle through. So at this point, the county's definitely identified some hotels that are one in Eureka, I know for sure, and also one in Garberville. I believe there are others as well. I could get more information for you on that from the Department of Health and Human Services. Definitely the county is positioned that if there were a hotel or a motel in Fortuna that wanted to offer those services, they would definitely work with them because they're looking for that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I mean, the thing that's come up recently also is speaking of the homeless, there were a couple of incidents, I think it's down in the Bay Area, where there was a spread in the homeless community. So Governor Newsom's been very, very aggressive in this regard, and even pushing for campgrounds, etc. The county so far is not really doing a huge amount on that. The city of Arcata identified the parking lot where they could house 19 with the social distancing. What the county's been doing in the outlying areas that I'm aware of, because that's mainly what I deal with, is they've been helping the people who have campgrounds not question, it's kind of less formal, but there are community members who go out and help them make sure that they do maintain social distancing. They provide them with the means to stay away, from crowds, etc. And that seems to be working well too. They also did hand washing facilities and that. But as far as providing campgrounds, the message from the county is, if somebody's got an area that they want to put forward, we could help logistically, but we would not staff it. And so there, honestly, it's a population. I'm sure Mike could speak to this. There's a lot of people who do not want to be under the control of the county, and there have even been people who were housed who wanted to leave because they couldn't live with those kind of controls. And you also have to look at, it's different from another disaster where you have tents set up and everybody is out there. This is all about social distancing. So again, we are doing it in hotels and motels and not so much campgrounds.
Yeah, and I'm not aware of any issues here in Fortuna currently regarding along those lines.
Great.
Well, I have another question for you, Chief, if you have a minute for it. Sure. With a lot of our businesses that are closed at the moment, is there extra policing that's happening? Do you have any suggestions for store owners on how to keep their property safe? Have you seen any uptick? I mean, I saw that Funky Monkey got broken into. Right. Has there been an increase in local crime for some of these businesses?
That's probably the one that comes to mind is the Funky Monkey, and I'm not aware of any other businesses that have had any issues with vandalism or break-ins, that type of thing. As far as policing goes, especially at night, I know my patrol guys are reporting that it is very, very slow out there. There's no one moving. which gives them the opportunity to drive around a lot more without being seen, because there's no one to see them basically. So they're out and about, but they say that very little traffic, foot traffic, or people driving around after 9 o'clock at night, and then it's that way until early morning when some people are going to work.
That's good. Do you have any suggestions on what a business owner should do to help minimize potential crime as far as securing their office?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing now is working very well with these video surveillance companies, and it's working really well. We just recently placed video cameras on the EPT site because we're trying to put infrastructure in there, and we have a service that monitors that, and we've obtained some very interesting video of people walking around there at night, a couple of them. It's just once or twice, but they're very effective. We get a call right away when someone's outside the business, and so those work very well. And any kind of alarm that's working properly, make sure, I would suggest that you make sure your alarms are working properly. You know, there's nothing wrong with having them come out and check them and make sure that there's no functionality issues, that type of thing. And of course, you know, the basic things that we've always told people is try not to clutter your front windows too much so that we can see in as we drive by, and just make sure that your doors are locked. We had an incident just last week where a business, the door was not locked. I can't remember which one it was, and someone did enter. I don't remember. I don't think anything of great value was taken. I'm trying to recall, but just remember to lock your businesses and double check them. You know, I do that all the time myself. I always double check when I lock something. But those are probably the biggest things you need to do, is just be aware. And again, we have been pretty much haven't had a lot of issues. And I was kind of watching that. With businesses being closed, what kind of issues we're going to have? We're going to have a lot of break-ins. We have not had that, except for Funky Monkey and isolated instances like that. Oh, nor have there been a lot of residential issues either.
Good. Well, those are all of my questions. Before we there's a couple of chat questions that we can get to. Is there anything else that I didn't hit on that you guys wanted to talk about before I turn it over to public questions? No?
Nothing more for me.
Okay.
Like to hear from people if anybody's got questions. Love to hear.
Okay. We have a question from Diana for our Fortuna PD police chief. How is the mental health of our community? Domestic violence, up or down? Anything happening with our youth or with our community service officers?
Yeah, that's really a great question. We are, again, I think as many cities and counties throughout the country are experiencing, there are some cracks in the dam, so to speak. People are getting tired of the routine that is upon them now. We are seeing some domestic violence issues. I wouldn't say it's a drastic increase, but there are some that have been somewhat of an increase. So I think as this goes on, I think that's why it's important we start opening things up as quickly as we can as this thing continues. And just being out in the community as I have in the last few days especially.
Oh, he just muted his phone. Oh, yeah.
They're not happy, understandably.
Yeah. Sorry, we missed those last few sentences.
Yeah, someone tried to call in. Yeah, it's just that people are they're more and more frustrated, but we haven't had a great large uptick in domestic violence. Especially there has been some, but I think as time goes by, if we don't start getting people back to work, we're going to see an increase of that.
Right. Well, one of the comments was about education, about the purpose of the masks and reminding us to be, each other to be compassionate. So maybe that could be, something we can do, or that, Diane and I can work on together with our business community to make sure that we do have that education aspect. as well as reminding everybody to try and be compassionate, because we really are all struggling together in very different ways. But our goal is the same, is to get Fortuna back on track, and to get our businesses open and our community, together again.
And that's one of the issues I see is with this new masking issue. There are those that are going to choose not to wear them, and my concern is, and I think I voiced this earlier, is that people are going to become more frustrated with each other. How come he or she's not wearing a mask and I am? The confrontation ensues. So we're being very, very sensitive to that as well.
Yeah, I see Diana's cat. Sorry, I got distracted. Cheryl, did you have a question? I see you put your hand up, or maybe you didn't mean to. Did you have a question, Cheryl? I'm going to unmute her if I can find her on here. Oh, there you go. Cheryl, did you want to?
Okay. Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
It's probably directed towards Estelle. I'm wondering what's going to be done about testing for people to find out. I really believe that there are some people that have the antibodies, and I wish them with that.
I'm so sorry I wasn't able to make.
Yeah, we missed. So it was
some of
something
that out.
about.
Is there any chance I could ask you to repeat it?
It was something about testing and antibodies. That's all I got out of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
That's
Yeah,
much better.
You were jumbled.
Estelle, I'm wondering what the county's going to be doing about testing. I believe that we need more testing to find out what percentage of people actually have already had the disease and may have antibodies. And I'm wondering what we're going to do in Humboldt County for testing.
Okay, so that really is a question for the health officer, but I think I can give you an idea with the reports that we're getting, that we're ramped up pretty well in terms of the kind of testing that we've been doing all along, which is people who are symptomatic. But I know what you're referencing is, so can we get a baseline of who actually has been exposed, who's got antibodies and all of that kind of thing. So right now the governor is working on that and making it more and more available. I know that LabCorp has already come out with the potential for that kind of testing. So in answer to your question, Cheryl, I think it's really important to, if you can, tune into tonight's meeting with the health officer, because those are the kind of questions they will be talking about. But it is one of the key elements of the governor's roads to reopening, if you will. One of them is testing, and they're concentrating on a lot. So I think you'll get some good information on that. I'm sorry I can't give you more, but we're definitely ramping up, but not at the stage where you've seen it at other places where they test people and drive by testing and all of that. We're not there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Please watch that show tonight.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, that's tonight from 6 to 7:30. You can watch it on the Access Humboldt channel 10, I believe, on Suddenlink, and also YouTube. And there's KMUD, is that right, Estelle? Was KMUD going to broadcast?
KMUD's going to do it. There's a few different ways you can hear it or watch it on the web.
Okay. All right. Well, I think unless anybody else has any other questions or comments, I just want to thank everybody for coming on and listening, and for our speakers for participating. I really appreciate it. And don't be surprised if I ask you to do this again. In a couple
thanks.
I was just going to suggest we need to do this again. I mean, one of my things about Fortuna is that Fortuna really knows how to do community. And it's just so good to see everybody here right now on the screen, but I wish we could be closer together. But I do think that, having these meetings, being able to talk with each other, and address any thoughts that we have. It can help us get through this. So yes, please do it again, Renee.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'd encourage anybody to, Renee, just want to take the opportunity. If anybody sees things that can be done better or has suggestions, I mean, we're open. This is unusual times. You know, I'm really thrilled that we have an experienced chief. And, you know, I don't know if Mike planned on managing a global pandemic for the city on this one. You know, so it's good to have another seasoned hand here at the city as well. So, but if anybody has comments, please call city manager's office and I'd be happy to take suggestions, or if you have ideas or questions, we're happy to track down more information as well.
yeah, you bring up a good point. How's the recruiting going?
We have some great candidates for police chief, and I'm fairly confident that we'll have a successful recruitment. I don't want to jinx that, but we have some great candidates, and we're trying to figure out a way to set up interviews in a time where we have to wear face masks, maybe can't meet in person. So there's some challenges, but we're moving ahead, and I hope that we'll have somebody in place in the coming months.
When is your next city council meeting?
Our next city council meeting is on May 4th.
Okay, so you're sticking to every 2 weeks then?
Yeah,
Or the
we're going to
first and the
continue to
third.
have
Okay.
Zoom meetings for the time being. And, you know, when we can open things up and implement some distancing, you know, hopefully we can have a podium for the public to show up again and have a little more user friendly. That we're looking forward to that as well. We've had a little, I think, slightly less participation than we did in the past. So I'm hoping that people are finding those Zoom meetings. And if you're not, again, get in touch with us at the city and we'll try to help you out if we can.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's Access Humboldt on local TV if you have it, or YouTube. They have a Access Humboldt YouTube channel where you can stream it. They've been doing it live now, which is great. But if not, they post the videos maybe a day or two later. There's something else I was gonna mention.
Let me say something in terms of meetings, Renee. We are going to have a board meeting this coming Tuesday, as I said, April 28th. And with our Zoom meeting, you can join us with calls in, like we did at our first one. And I think that if you have any questions regarding the health officer's order, as well as the economic recovery, that would be a good time because the county personnel will be there to answer those questions.
Oh, good point. Okay, great. Awesome. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Again,
Thank
it's been
you.
great. This will be posted on our Fortuna Chamber YouTube channel. This is the inaugural video. So congratulations to everybody for joining. When your award for participating. So awesome. Thank you everybody so much. And more to come. Hopefully we'll do some more meetings in the future and get to see everybody again. So thanks everybody. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Renee.
Thank you.